just to let you know that we are recording today's session. Any objections with that, please let us know, or you can, of course, choose to leave the session as well. So just to let you know about the session, it's being facilitated by the WLGA, by our climate change support programme, which is funded by Welsh Government. And the aim of our programme is to support Welsh councils collectively in preparing for a net zero 2030 public sector. So yeah, we can move on to our presenter now. So I'm really pleased that Alex Ellis from Flintshire County Council is able to join us, who's presenting today's session. And she is the Programme Manager for Climate Change and Carbon Reduction. So there will be a Q&A at the end. We've saved a bit of time for that. So if you do have any questions, any feedback, any comments, anything you'd like to ask Alex about, you can do that at the end of today's session as well. And of course, feel free to use the chat bar as well. That's there if you don't want to put your hand up. So I think that's it from me. Diolch yn fawr, thanks very much. So I'll hand over to Alex now then, please. Thank you. Diolch.
Great, thanks, Dewi. I just share my screen. Okay, everyone can see that okay?
Yeah, that's come up. Thanks, Alex.
Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, thank you for coming to the session this afternoon. I just wanted to really feedback to you on the approach that we've taken, or that we're taking within Flintshire, and hopefully it will sort of spark some thought and some conversation within your own councils. You might have different approaches to how you're integrating carbon impacts, but these are some of the methods that we've chosen. Now, integrating carbon impacts within decision making, the whole climate change programme is, of course, a behaviour change programme, and the theme that I'm sort of tackling within this presentation touches base on behaviour change. So there might be some crossover or segueing into the next spotlight session, which is also on behaviour change. So first thought, how do people make decisions? People generally make decisions by sort of mentally weighing different options, and that's based on a combination of factors like their personal values, what information is available to them, their emotions or past experiences on a specific subject. Sometimes it can even be unconscious biases, and ultimately they choose the path that seems the most beneficial or appealing to them at that moment. And this process often involves gathering information, evaluating alternatives, and considering potential consequences before making a final choice. So how do we try to impact and change the way that people make decisions? Well, as part of carbon literacy training delivery, I carried out an exercise with the senior leaders across the council, and that was to try and understand their feelings when the words climate change were mentioned. And this sort of word art here captures the kind of messaging that came out of that exercise. There was a common theme around fear, anxiety, guilt, threatened, sad, all completely understandable and valid emotions and feelings in terms of climate change. I then continued through the content of the course and provided information, did some myth busting, did some listening to sort of opposing views, setting the scene for the council's own part to play in decarbonisation and what responsibility the council has and those as individuals. We repeated this sort of activity at the end of the session, and the messaging had already transformed. So there were still feelings of sort of fear and anxiety, but there were much clearer feelings of acceptance, motivation, optimism, enthusiasm, and the carbon pledges that they made after the training sort of reflected their own understanding of how they could integrate carbon within their own decision making. And that's, one of the reasons why climate change is a behaviour change programme. It's our attitudes, our values, our behaviours. They're what will make the difference between success and failure in achieving net zero carbon. Any change, no matter how small, has the potential to impact on an individual and may generate conflict between existing values and beliefs and what the anticipated change is. Officers and elected members across the council will sit somewhere along this curve. You might sit somewhere along this curve at the moment. And the idea is that you work through this curve and then you come out the other side at the end. So to help people move through the transition effectively, we need to understand their perception of the past, present and future. So what is their past experience of the change and how has it impacted on them? How did they cope previously? What will they be losing as part of the change and what will they be gaining? It's our role to help make the transition as effective and painless as possible. And we do that by providing education, information, support, and then we can help people transition through that curve and emerge on the other side. Don't know if anyone's seen this combi model of behaviour change before, which is only one method of many theories around behaviour change. But this one suggests that capability, motivation, and opportunity are essential for any behaviour to change. And these are the three components that interact with each other. And we're going to have a look at those within this presentation. So in terms of capability, does the target audience have the right knowledge and skills? Do they have the physical and mental ability to carry out the behaviour? Do they know how to do the behaviour? In terms of opportunity, do the target audience have the resources to undertake the behaviour? Have we given them the right tools and the right policies? Have they got the right systems, processes and environment around them? Have they people around them who will help or hinder them to carry it out? And I'm sure that even within your teams and your services and the wider organisation, there will be some people who are real change agents. They really support what you're trying to do. And there'll be others that can be blockers and will bring up barriers in your development. And then in terms of motivation, does the target audience want to carry out the behaviour? Do they believe that they should carry out the behaviour? And have they the right habits in place to do so? So we're going to have a look at capability, opportunity and motivation mechanisms within Flintshire Council. First thing to look at in terms of motivation is the global motivation. So we know that science says if we're going to have a reasonable chance of keeping warming to 1.5 degrees, and I want to say that 1.5 degrees isn't a target, that's a worst case scenario. We have until 2030 to cut global emissions some 50%. We then have another 2 decades until 2050 to reach net zero emissions, and that was in the IPCC report in 2018. So it's been updated even since then. But that's a fairly strong global motivation. Other motivators following that, we've got the Paris Agreement, UK policy with a net zero carbon by 2050 target, and an 81% reduction by 2035. Welsh Government policy, which sets a net zero carbon nation by 2050 with a 63% reduction by 2030 and 89% by 2040. There's the Welsh Government ambition for a net zero carbon public sector by 2030. And it's important to reiterate within that while the direct local authority emissions might only account for 2% of the UK emissions, we have the influence of 33%, so we can have quite a big impact just with the decisions that we make as a council. Moving to local motivation, this cheesy fella here is our Chief Exec, Neil Crockerton, if you've not seen his face before. And he sets a statement from the top level of the organisation. And his initial statement sort of tied in with COVID recovery, but it also brought in some of the co-benefits of climate action. So it's talking about values as council, talking about co-benefits of climate action, and it's talking about driving change from the top down. In terms of co-benefits, I always like to think of an example that one of the councillors shared with me that I thought was quite interesting. And he said he was having a conversation. He's the vice chair of our climate change committee. He was having a conversation with a fellow councillor, and the fellow councillor said to him, "Oh, I don't believe in this climate change nonsense. It's just ridiculous." And so this councillor said to him, "Well, it's a bit like gravity, isn't it?" He said, "If you was to jump off the roof of that building, gravity would affect you, whether you believe it in or not." And I thought it's a really interesting way to think about climate change. Even if you don't believe that climate change exists or that it's being created due to human behaviour or accelerated due to human behaviour, there's nothing to lose by taking climate action. All of the things that we're trying to do within climate action are to improve the environment, reduce fuel poverty, make it a cleaner, safer environment for people to live in. And those sometimes are the focuses when you're talking to people across the council. They want to see how the climate action is going to help them and help them to achieve what they need to achieve. It doesn't always have to be tied to it's because of climate change, which is quite an interesting concept. So when you're thinking about motivation, it's important to look outside the realms of climate change and promote the benefits of the co-benefits of climate action. So in terms of opportunity, the foundation of our climate change programme is the climate change strategy. This is the original strategy. We're just in the process of going through the governance process with the reviewed strategy, which has been fun. And the strategy split into 5 key themes. So we've got building, mobility and transport, land use, procurement, and then an overarching theme of behaviour. And that's because, we could throw loads of money at buildings to make them net zero carbon. But if we don't change the behaviours of the people using those buildings, it's not going to be as impactful as we need it to be. So it's really important that we had a theme that was specific to behaviour. Each of those key themes then has its own action plan to net zero carbon. And this is an example of the action plan for behaviour. And you can see that I've circled there one of the actions, which is to ensure councillors and employees complete carbon literacy or introduction to climate change or nature-wise training, and inclusion of climate change within the induction process. We'll come back to this as we start to consider capability. So other aspects of improving opportunity can be through your governance frameworks. An effective governance framework with the process and opportunity to change behaviours is really important. So we've got a cabinet member for climate change, which is really impactful from a political perspective. We have a cross-party climate change committee who are there to oversee and scrutinise the programme. For each of those key themes of the strategy, we have officer working groups, and they work through the action plans for each of those for each of those aims. We also have a portfolio programme board, so that's senior officers within our portfolio who are there as a sounding board for some of the decisions that we look to make. We have the Environment and Economy Overview and Scrutiny Committee, who are very good at scrutinising, and then Cabinet. So any decisions that we make have a really clear governance framework. We also have the measures within our strategy included within the council plan priorities and corporate updates. So it's sort of very visual and central to the direction the council's going and the way that it's achieving its objectives as a council. The risks are also included within the both corporate and programme risk registers. So again, there's a lot of exposure that those corporate risks have, because they don't just belong to me or a climate change team, they belong to the whole of the council. And then we also work in collaboration with external parties, so Public Services Board, Welsh Government Energy Service, WLGA, APSI, etc. And this provides opportunities for the subject to be discussed, scrutinised, appraised, and it builds it into the DNA of the organisation. It's also important to improve opportunity through tool provision. So there are a few tools that we're using to integrate carbon within key decision making. First one of those is the integrated impact assessment. So the carbon and co-benefits decision support tool, which in-house we call integrated impact assessment, was developed with the Centre for Climate Change and Social Transformations, CAST, and the University of Manchester. And you will have seen a presentation on this tool previously at the COG session. The idea is that it guides the officer through several impact factors for consideration against their project proposal. So these include impacts on carbon, biodiversity, equalities, Welsh language, transport, housing, etc. And within your council, you'll have your own version of an integrated impact assessment, and that may or may not include carbon impacts at the moment. What this one does is it's quite intuitive. So you go through a process of answering initial questions, and depending on what your responses to those initial questions are, it will then put you through to full assessments. So once you've completed the full assessment, you're given a RAG rating for each of those impacts. And where there's anything that's amber or red, there's an opportunity for you to justify or include what mitigation action you're taking to reduce the RAG status. It allows for an export into a report format, so you don't have to send a spreadsheet. You can just send a Word document, which is really good. The idea of the integrated impact assessment is that it's completed at the first stages of a project. So that's before any decisions have been made on the sort of more mature stages of a project. It's completed by officers with support from key teams, and the results page export that I just mentioned is then attached to committee reports. And the idea of that is that the members consider the impacts of the proposal before making a decision on its adoption. So when we complete any committee report that is either strategic or is going to change the way that the council delivers that service, then this integrated impact assessment has to be completed and attached to that report. There's still work to do on full integration, quality of assessments and quality of scrutiny. A lot of that will come from provision of training, both for members on the scrutiny committee, so they know what it is that they're looking at, what they're asking for, and what good practice looks like. But it's also for the officers who regularly fill out the assessments to make sure that they are fully assessing what the risk and what the impact on those different areas might be. We've also developed a guidance document which explains the whole process, and it's available on our infonet. Another tool that we utilise is the capital business case template, which now has a mandatory environmental option. So you'll see that this one was an example from the last round of budgets, and it was the local toilet strategy, very, very important, improving the toilet facilities. So it now has, within the options appraisal, a mandatory environmentally enhanced option. So it forces officers to consider how can this piece of work be procured and designed and carried out so that it has a lower impact on the environment or on our carbon impacts. It also has a section where they have to declare whether they think it helps, hinders, or is neutral to our net zero carbon council. And they also have to include whether it has an impact on natural land or involves physical works to property or land. So there's biodiversity assessment included. This template was successfully adopted for the first time in 2024-25 capital bid process, and that's for the capital programme 25-26 to 27-28. And we had consideration of carbon and biodiversity impacts for projects such as ICT server tech, laptop replacement scheme, cemetery infrastructure, public convenience management, and integrated child support, building development. So it's really good pieces of work, and the officers had some support from the climate change team, but largely they were able to look at what options there were available from their supply chain to include within the business case template. Again, there's still work to do on the quality of assessments, but as a first round, I thought they did really well. Another way that we're improving opportunity through tool provision is with the school and town and community council climate toolkits. And you will have seen a presentation on this at a previous COG meeting. We developed and published the toolkits to empower schools and town and community councils to take action on climate change. And the toolkit includes an environmental assessment, footprint calculator, carbon reduction plan template, with a library of climate actions covering all aspects of emission source and embedding carbon within decision making within the school. Tried to aim at empowering pupils to lead on the actions so that they drive change both at school and in the home. And it's been very successful. We've had now got a second high school who've signed up to use the toolkit, which is really encouraging. So in terms of capability, you saw that action previously to ensure council leaders and employees complete carbon literacy, introduction to climate change, nature-wise training. We've taken a three-pronged approach to this. So we offer certified in-house carbon literacy training. It's delivered in-house, and it was for key decision makers initially, elected members and senior managers. But we have opened that out to the wider employee base now. We also developed an introduction to climate change e-learn module, which is a lighter touch, sort of 90-minute session, and that's designed for the main employee base. And that was developed as a regional collaboration with Canal Cymru. And then there's more specific training and skills gaps within specialised roles. So there are some teams who are more operational, they're more on the ground, that need more specific training on what the impacts are, or have less access to computers. So we need to sort of design training delivery specifically for them. And we also always forward on other opportunities that come to us from external networks. So there's a lot of APSI and WLGA training that we always forward through to officers, and hopefully they take up that training too. There's been a real interest, appetite and desire to learn and make change. In terms of the WCVA Decarbonisation Leadership Series workshops, we had 27 employees attend across quite a variety of different departments, which was really good. We've had 68 attendees at APSI seminars and webinars. We've had 105 councillors and officers complete carbon literacy training so far, and 147 employees have completed the e-learn module. And then we've also delivered bespoke training workshops for members, with further bespoke sessions to be created for specific service areas. The feedback from carbon literacy training has been really positive. They found it really interesting in terms of the, I guess, scope and size. I think a lot of people don't realise how climate change is impacting us locally. They hear a lot about maybe global or national impacts, but not necessarily things that are closer to home. It also helped them to realise that just because they don't have the words climate change in their job title doesn't mean that considering the impacts of their actions on climate change isn't within their role. And I found that really enlightening, because there's not very many of us that have got climate change in our job title. So if it was just up to us, then, well, we'd be a bit stuck, really, wouldn't we? So the carbon literacy training has been really interesting, and it sounds like people have really received a lot of motivation from it, which is what we want. It's quite hard hitting in parts, but they come out of the other end feeling empowered and wanting to make change, which is really good. So Welsh Government, within the route map for decarbonisation, they declared that by 2030, they wanted choosing net zero carbon to be routine, culturally embedded and self-regulating. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways is through following a behaviour change programme like this. Thinking about capability, so promoting and encouraging effective communication, information and training for stakeholders, and that's internal and external. Providing the opportunity, so having an effective governance framework and utilising effective tools, identifying what the gaps are and where they are and how they can be overcome. And then providing the motivation, so you've got global, you've got national, you've got local aims, making sure that stakeholders understand what their contribution is and how they can influence it. Okay, there are my contacts, and that is the end of my very quick presentation, which I ran through supersonic speed. So if anyone's got any questions, then please do let me know. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Alex. Really appreciate your time this afternoon, and I think particularly appreciate you sort of looking at things, yes, strategically, but also providing a few sort of practical examples. What councils, local authorities, other organisations can start doing as well, on the ground, which is really useful, I think. So brilliant. So yeah, as I mentioned at the start, happy to open it up there to the Q&A session now, really. So if anyone has anything they'd like to ask Alex in terms of the presentation, in terms of this afternoon's topic, so then please come in. You can use the chat as well if you'd like to. Please do. So just to thank Alex again for presenting. Great session, and I think food for thought as well. I think a lot for organisations and local authorities to consider following the presentation. So thanks very much. Just to mention very quickly, so our next climate spotlight session it will be in March. That's Wednesday, 26th of March. That's 11 o'clock, and we've got James Smolinski from Public Health Wales at the Behavioural Science Unit there presenting on that. We'll send the presentation round from today, the booking link for next month's session as well, and the link to the new web page that we've got here at WLGA as well, where you can watch recordings of previous spotlight sessions as well. As always, if there's anything you'd like to see in terms of the session, any thoughts, any feedback, anything like that at all, please let us know. So that's it. Thanks very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn am fynychu. Many thanks for attending, and we'll see you soon. Diolch yn fawr. Goodbye.
Thank you, Alex.
Diolch.
Diolch.